You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Cricket Podcast, where we're going to be talking about the IPL replacements. I'm super excited. I love the IPL. I can't wait for it to be back in less than a month now. Unfortunately, though, some of the teams have had to switch up their size. I say unfortunately. Fortunately, that gives us something to talk about. I'm Jack Hope. I'm joined by Dan Weston. How are you doing, Dan?
I am good, Jack. Yeah, can't wait for the IPL like you. So let's do it.
Yeah. Just a quick reminder, we're sponsored by Woodstock Cricket. You can find us at The Cricket Pod on Twitter and Instagram. You can find us on Patreon, patreon.com/The Cricket Pod on Patreon. And you should like, subscribe, follow, whatever, to our content. The IPL. So we probably need to set the table slightly with this. Obviously, because of COVID, we're playing half and half season. And because of COVID again, or because of other commitments, some players have had to drop out of the tournament. In this show, we're just going to quickly run through the 9 or 10 changes to the squads that we have seen. We'll talk about the winners and the losers, and then we'll wrap it up. It should be pretty quick, I reckon. Let's start off, though, I think, Dan, with the teams that haven't made changes. And I just want to check in with you to see whether, I don't know, the changes are not necessarily enforced, whether you think their squads are still good. It's three of the big dogs, really. So we've got Mumbai Indians, we've got Delhi Capitals, we've got Chennai Super Kings, all not making moves or not having to make moves. Do you think they'll be happy with their squads going into the UAE?
I do, although I think that that's also a relevant point to make is that the CSK squad is now 6 months older.
That is that is something I hadn't actually considered, but is a valuable point to make. Who was the other team? Just bring it up.
Sunrisers.
It's Sunrisers. And Sunrisers, obviously, they've not made any changes.
But they only released 3 players before the last auction. Taking stability to the new extreme. And
I think, didn't they have an injury as well? Was Natarajan ruled out and they just decided not to replace him? So they're doing their own thing.
So they really needed a hitter and they got in Kiliada. So you figure.
Yeah. They're bottom of the table with 1 win from their 7 matches, so we don't really need to talk about them. In terms of who has made a move,
really materialised, did it for us?
Sorry, what didn't materialise?
Sunrisers Hyderabad special. We discussed.
No, it didn't. But there's still plenty of time, isn't there? To get into detail. They are such a laughing stock. Right. Let's start with the team that's made the fewest moves. Pat Cummins ruled out for Kolkata Knight Riders, Dan. He has been replaced by Tim Southee. On a scale of 1 to 10, how do you rate that substitution?
1.
1. We had a question in here asking us basically to list from HL, to list all the other players that we could have picked instead of Tim Southee. I don't know if there's anyone off the top of your head that you definitely have had instead of him.
Well, how long have you got? You are someone I would have taken Naveen straight away. Not even close to considering that.
Yeah,
there's plenty of others as well. Many others. Yeah, I wouldn't even look at Southee as a blast player.
I think it's pretty. Really, that's quite a substantial.
There's a couple of players like that. Honestly.
Yeah. I thought as well, and we've said it a few times on this podcast, Tim Southee going to the T20 World Cup and not Adam Milne.
Yeah.
And I was doing some like a quick analysis of bowlers in the 100 today. Milne was less than a run a ball.
Oh, obviously, the pleasure of working with him for a month was absolutely incredible. I think there's a viable case to say that he's at this point in time the form bowler of the world in T20 cricket.
Yeah. So it's New Zealand's loss is everyone else's game on that front. Next on the list, the Punjab Kings. I always want to say Super Kings, but they're not Super Kings. They're not Punjab Kings 11 either. Punjab Kings. Riley Meredith and Jai Richardson ruled out. They're 2 reasonably big money Australian pickups from the auction way back in January or early February. Nathan Ellis and Adil Rashid in. Adil Rashid, let's start with him, and then we'll talk about Nathan
Yeah.
Ellis, because I don't know too much about Nathan Ellis. I'm interested to hear some stuff. Not exactly a like-for-like replacement there from Punjab.
Certainly not, but Darren Goff will be pleased. So everyone. For those listeners who aren't aware, Darren Goff and I had a tete-a-tete, shall we say, on Twitter after the auction earlier in the year. I actually am pleased to see Adil Rashid get a contract. I was the whole point that I was trying to make is it's nothing to do with his quality or anything like that. It is simply to do with the fact that IPL teams very, very rarely go into the overseas spinners market because they back their own spinners. They don't want to use a slot on an overseas spinner unless they really, really have to. Actually, as it goes, I think PBK is that's a good recruitment for them because they have lacked a good leg spinner for a long time. Over the last few years, in particular.
You're not a Ravi Bishnoi fan.
Well, I know I am, but I'm talking about over a long period of time. Certainly, he's a huge upgrade on. Is it Murugan Ashwin? So I think there's a pretty compelling argument for him to play on a regular basis. And I think that's fair enough. As you say, it's not like for like, but maybe I don't have an issue with that either because I think that maybe they're acknowledging the fact that their previous recruitment had imbalance in their bowling group and they look to address that. So I'm fine with that.
So they've won 3 of their 8 matches, which puts the chances of qualification in a reasonably precarious position. But if they're upgrading a place there, maybe that'll be better. Although I do think losing Richardson and Meredith will probably hurt them because I've sort of thought of them as a pretty poor pace bowling side in previous IPLs, and I thought that those two would maybe address that. But I'm also I will be honest, I am starting to come around to the idea that Adil Rashid might be slightly overrated. Obviously he's the best English leg spinner, but I don't know how well that translates in terms of being one of the best leg spinners, if that makes sense. But it'll be interesting to see him in the IPL. Hopefully he gets a few games. He's certainly a good player. I just can't see historically why teams in the IPL have just not bothered picking him up. Nathan Ellis, Dan, do you want to tell me a little bit about him?
I do, yeah. First things first, he benefits from Australia tax. Okay. I think we know where we're going with that one. If you're Australian, you're automatically better than everybody else in the IPL, according to the IPL recruiters anyway. Nathan Ellis, okay, so he had a breakthrough season in BBL, last edition of BBL, playing for Hobart, I think it was. I know a lot about him. I've done a lot of recruitment work on him previously, so I feel fairly well placed to make a call. Now, when you go on his cricket info page, his numbers are fairly unremarkable. However, I would also say that has a massive, massive, massive caveat. This guy has the highest percentage of death overs bowled out of his overall overs of any player in my entire database.
So he's a specialist, in other words, here.
Absolutely. So they've switched him from Meredith. Meredith's not a death bowler, but obviously Jai to some extent was. So they've looked to try and shore up their death bowling stocks. The problem is that I still think he's got something to find. I looked at him a little bit before, but I want to see a lot more in terms of sample size before I really make a firm call. I see him as a player with upside, but I think this is a gigantic step up for him. I don't necessarily think he's ready for this yet, and I think it's a massive risk. But he got a hat-trick against 3 Bangladesh tailenders the other day, so obviously...
Yeah, why not, mate? Yeah, it's...
I could understand why someone picked him up, but from the article I read on Quick Info about his signing, that apparently there was a 3-way tug of war for his services, and I don't get that. So it's like, as I say, it's the Australian tax. What these teams don't realise is that the Big Bash now is fairly mediocre standard. The boundary is huge, and it makes the bowlers look way better than what they actually are. And we're going to see exactly the same in CPL soon as well. CPL, the whole tournament's been played at St Kitts with 2 pitches to be used for the entire group stages. So when it's turning square for the second half of the competition and all these
spinners playing on a day 20 pitch,
4 for 15 off their 4 overs and get IPL contracts, they probably aren't as good as what these teams think.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's one of the next big analytical awakenings will be they've got a stat in baseball, OPS plus, which factors in basically the size of the baseball pitch or baseball stadium you're playing in. I think something pitch adjusted will come out in cricket soon. That's a little bit more common, or a way of applying.
I do some stuff like that already, actually, but it's never something that I'm going to put in the public domain.
No. That's your intellectual property.
It's helped me with my recruitment this year anyway. It's worked pretty well.
Yeah. Next up on the list, actually, can we just rate those 2 out of 10? Punjab Kings recruitment out of 10. So KKR, they got a 1 out of 10. Punjab?
5.
Okay. Yeah.
They
lose quite a lot.
7 for Rashid and a 3 for Ellis. We'll go with 5 for the average.
Fair enough. Rajasthan Royals, they lose Jofra Archer, they lose Andrew Ty, they pick up Glenn Phillips, they pick up Tabriz Shamsi. I actually think that's, considering they're not really losing Jofra Archer in the sense that they could have played him or he was around, he's just long-term injured. I think that's a reasonable trade. I don't know what you think.
It's not like for like, and we again see that maybe teams are acknowledging some deficiencies in their group. Mm-hmm. Maybe the acquisition of Shamsi was down to the fact that they've maybe got a little bit less faith in Shreyas Gopal, who seems to have gone off the boil in the last sort of 12, 18 months. I still think they've got problems with working out their best 4 overseas, or the 4 overseas are going to be their main core. I like Phillips. Do I think he's the best available option? No. But I think he's a decent player for sure. And I'd probably say that that's the same for Shamsi as well, actually.
Yeah, I think
it's not disastrous.
On Rajasthan's on Rajasthan, while we're talking about them, I'm pretty sure Josh Butler's ruled himself out of the IPL. But I believe Liam Livingstone will be returning after he dropped out in
huge bonus.
April, which is, if we're talking about adding a player to the team who probably you'd think walk into their 11 now that he's shown his stuff in the blast.
Can I just bring us back to that point? I think we spoke about it after game 1 of the IPL, their first game, I should say, of the IPL this year. When I mentioned, I'm 99% sure that I mentioned the fact that David Miller playing ahead of Liam Livingstone was probably the most absurd selection decision. I think I've been proven right there.
Yeah, I reckon you probably have on that one.
That plays well.
Rajasthan, they've got 3 wins from 7. They actually have a realistic chance of going through if they could sort things out. I mean, I still think their Indian players are so poor that's unlikely. But I don't think they've necessarily hurt themselves by getting Phillips, Shamsi, and effectively recalling Liam Livingstone to the side.
Ty was a weird retention to start with.
Yeah. What would you rate them out of 10? 6, slightly better. And that brings us on to the final team, not Rajasthan Royals, Royal Challengers Bangalore, Virat Kohli's boys. They've lost Adam Samper, they've lost Daniel Sams, they've lost Kane Richardson, they've lost Finn Allen. They're bringing in Wanindu Hasaranga, Dushmantha Kamira, George Garton, and Tim David. Where do you want to start on the mega trade, the biggest movers of the auction, the biggest movers of the replacement window as well? It's interesting.
Well, anyone who follows me on Twitter at SA Advantage will know that I actually have complimented RCB on their recruitment over the last couple of days. So I like it on a general basis. Hasaranga is an amazing pickup. I think he's an upgrade on Shamsi for Rajasthan, for example. The fact is, I think he's a better spinner and he can bat. So having that extra depth, and I feel like this is now becoming a theme with RCB, that they're starting to try and build this extra depth so that the top order can become those intent machines, having a bit more backup if necessary. I like it. I like it a lot. And I think that Hasaranga is as good as a pickup you could find for Zampa as a replacement player. The other guys, Tim David against Finn Allen is an interesting one. I obviously spent the last month with Finn. I actually got on pretty well with him. I think he's a pretty funny guy, actually. Good banter and stuff. I think his upside as a batter is gigantic. and obviously that's probably a little bit of a blow that he's not going to play for them, although he didn't really play for them through selection before. I think Tim David's probably a very, very good option as cover for him. I think the reason why I like the move is because Finn's a hitter, Tim David's a hitter. So effectively, it's a very logical replacement, because assuming Finn was going to play and then you lost him, you have to replace his boundary production somewhere else. And David is capable of hitting a similar level of boundary hitting. So it makes a lot of sense. It's not quite like for like Finn's an opener. Tim David's more of sort of a middle order, lower middle order player. But I think there's a lot to like about that, and they could certainly have done a lot worse than Tim David as a replacement for that.
George Garton?
Like him again. This is a guy whose power play and death numbers are really strong. Power play in particular, magnificent numbers. I actually think he's an upgrade on Kane Richardson, I should say. Left armour, to be able to get an exchange for a left armour and avoid paying the left armour tax is pretty decent. And his batting has improved a lot as well. And I can tell you from personal experience from the 100 final the other day, he's a great fielder as well, and has a bullet arm. Apparently, I was speaking to someone at Squad at Birmingham. Apparently, he's got like this baseball mound in his garden, and he's permanently practicing stuff. So interesting. But in terms of guys with upside and improvement in exhibited over the last year, he's definitely up there. And I think that it's what I would call it's a bit of a hipster's choice, I suppose, to some extent. But I think it's showing now that RCB are moving away from the big name model and going and looking to find that sort of lower profile talent around the world. And props to them. Big credit to them.
Yeah. And then Kamira is the other one, who is another Sri Lankan. I'm
less enamoured by this, I must say. Bowled all right against England, I think, in the white ball stuff. I think he's done all right subsequently into internationals as well. But this is a massive step up. This really is a massive step up. I think he's more unproven. Again, pretty similar to the Southee pick for KKR. I feel that there's a lot of players who are probably ahead of him in a logical pecking order right now. Again, I think he'd struggle to get a blast contract at the moment. But there's probably some upside there, certainly more upside than there is with Southee. But yeah, I'm a bit unconvinced by that one, but the other three I really like.
So out of 10, what are you giving RCB?
8.
That's pretty good. We got a couple of questions in. What do you think about Livingston on UAE pitches? Will that work, or is it
fun in Sharjah, isn't it?
It could be pretty fun in Sharjah. Yeah, I think there's the other thing with Livingston. He can bowl. He can bowl leg spin and off spin, which is useful. I mean, it's a lot of people say, don't they? If you can have a bowling option in your top 6, it gives you a lot of flexibility with the rest of your lineup, and he is a bowling option. Might not want to be giving 4 overs every game, but he's probably in the Glenn Maxwell camp of bowlers. As it goes. Yeah.
Conditions.
And Portmanteau says thoughts on George Garton. We've sort of discussed that. I guess the follow-up point to Portmanteau's question here is do you think he'll actually play or not?
Yeah, there's a chance.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will be getting back on the IPL stuff pretty soon, actually. We need to do like a mid-season preview of some of these teams. I don't know if we'll do the 8-part mega series that we did for the beginning of the tournament. Maybe we'll re-release some of those. But it will be good, and it's coming around pretty fast. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Jack Hope. Dan, do you want to let people know where to find you?
Yeah, I mentioned earlier, you can find me on Twitter at SA Advantage, and I've actually just started a Substack today. So if you want to read some ramblings about the 100, which I've posted today, and a ton of cricket analytics articles that I'm going to post in the future, you can check that out, danweston.substack.com.
There we go. And you can find us at The Cricket Pod on Twitter and Instagram, thecricketpod.com. is our website. I don't know why I said that. Patreon.com/the cricket pod. And we're sponsored by Woodstock Cricket. Dan, thanks very much for joining us. We will be, I don't know when this is going to be released, actually. We'll be back soon.